Welcome, all fellow wannabes. Welcome to the show. You are listening to Game Club from Wannabe Critic Productions. I am one of your hosts, Gabriel Fast, and joining me is he's never really been a part of the show, but he's always kind of been a part of the show for a while now. And he's been on, we finished an entire game series together. You might have heard it. It was the Mass Effect review. We did Mass Effect 1, 2, and 3. Ethan Maestri from Age of Geek Productions is returning. How are you feeling, bro?
I'm feeling good. I've just been sitting here at home watching my tights.
Watching your tights or washing your tights?
Well, I watched them go around in the washer, but washing my tights, yeah.
That's been like your form of entertainment for the, this winter break we've had of sorts. Yeah. Just watch it like the old remember that old Coldplay music video? I don't know which one it was, but like he's in a laundromat and I think he's in like a
I don't remember which song that was, but yeah. I remember that video. Yeah. No, that's an 89. That's an 89 Batman deep cut for those that know.
Oh, I'd say, is that a Joker reference? Does he say
it is?
That?
It is.
Because we just watched that last weekend. So I'm like, what the crap is Ethan's drinking brown substances on camera tonight, and I thought he might have like lost his freaking mind a little bit, but he didn't.
No, so, that is my Joker reference.
Yeah. Well, there you go. We are in fact diving into a very beloved series, a very interesting game series. Chocked full of action, chocked full of good characters, chocked full of somewhat interesting story. Really interesting story. I think, the thing about these games is it's very like, there's good surface level stuff, but then if you're like a real big fan of various Batman things, there's some real deep lore there, and I'm just super excited to talk about it because, Batman is my favorite superhero after all. I mean, favorite DC hero, I guess I should say, because he doesn't have powers. But
yeah.
Before we get into it, Ethan, how have you been?
Oh, great. I'm coming off of back-to-back 3-day weekends. It's 2021, so instantly it's not 2020. So yeah, I'm better. No,
yeah, you're inherently better because it is now 2021.
Sure.
Yeah, no, I feel the same way, man. It's of course, I don't really do the whole New Year's thing, obviously, and I know you don't really do that either, but I mean, it is always nice to kind of start fresh. You got new beginnings, you got the whole idea going on, and it's just a nice reset, So, although I did read that they found a werewolf in Pakistan this morning, so 2021 is off to a great start already, I guess. So, I made jokes about it. What are you drinking this evening?
Hold on. Let me mark my calendar. 4 days in, werewolves discovered.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that tracks.
Someone put like, are you familiar with Kingdom Hearts at all? They always have like the weirdest names for their games, like Kingdom Hearts like 1.5 remix. It's like, this isn't 2021. It's 2020 2.5 remix redux. Like, just like basically just a continuation.
Yeah.
But yeah. And I mean, I do want to know what you're drinking actually, but before we do, I mean, folks, the fact of the matter is, nothing has changed except the date on the calendar. So wear your masks when you go in public. I mean, at this point, people are like, I ain't gonna wear my mask. That's how people talk around here. They're like, I ain't wearing no crappy mask. It's like, well, you're not gonna be able to go to the grocery store. You're not going to be able to get any food anywhere unless you just go to Taco Bell or McDonald's every day, which you probably already are. If you're talking like that and acting that way, just come on. I'm ready to go back to the movies and spend way too much money on, popcorn and soda and beer and food and the whole thing. And really the movie sometimes too.
Yeah. Lock it down now. Play along.
Yeah.
Lock it down now. Celebrate later.
Literally.
It'll be there for you. So.
I mean, we're looking at, if everyone would just follow suit, we're looking at just a few months probably before things start to open back up realistically.
And if not, at least flattening the curve helps helps people. Yeah.
Yeah. But enough of that. We're not going to bring the 2020, like nonsense of COVID. We're not going to bring that back. What are you drinking tonight?
I am drinking a Highland Scotch single malt. I forget the name of it. But it's good.
A Highland Scotch.
Yeah.
You came into the Zoom room and you were looking like really relaxed because he knows he had to he had to salve himself a little bit mentally to be able to deal with my spastic behavior. But we're gonna kind of piggyback off of what you do on your show. You like to talk about whiskeys and things like that at times.
Yeah.
So and over here at Wannabe Critic Productions, we have a little show that we did back in 2019, 2020. We called it Beer Bros. Season 2 is in production right now, pre-production. We're getting it all together.
Excellent.
So it's exciting. So to kick off 2021, why don't you give us a little mini review of your single malt whiskey there, your Scotch, excuse me. It's Scotch.
Well, the single malt that I can't remember the name of, I picked it up off the dime shelf at my neighborhood market. Well, not dime shelf, but it was a $25. I hadn't had it before. I figured it's good. My wife wanted a Scotch that she could put her amaretto and make Godfathers with. And so I just grabbed it off the shelf. And I'm finding that without the amaretto, it's enjoyable just as a sipping whiskey. I think Tullamore.
Tullamore Dew?
No, that's an Irish.
This
is a Scotch. Yeah. I don't know. If we take a break at some point, I'll go check the name and then we'll name check it later. But I don't have it in front of me right now.
Well, there you go.
I'm just enjoying it.
He's just enjoying it. He looked like it had a good color to it. He picked it up for 25. Yeah. He's like, and now he's just enjoying it.
It's a good one. Shout out to the local Jugs, our local liquor store. So
yeah, I actually over the past 2 Black Fridays, there's a special beer that releases called Bourbon County brand stout. And usually anytime you go to a liquor store, they only give you like 1 bottle, even of the regular. So like there's the regular and then there's variants like cherry, vanilla, stuff like that. So 2 years ago, I went in and he let us buy like 2 or 3 variants per person. So I ended up getting like 6 or 7 variants where most people would have to go all around all these different places and, buy 1 bottle at per place type thing. So it's kind of cool. Shout out to Jugs. They're good folks. I have a couple tulip glasses from Jugs in my cabinet as well.
There you go.
I decided to go super simple redneck #content cowboy tonight. And I'm enjoying a nice natural light, in a Macadoodles koozie.
The other great liquor store in the area.
Yeah. Macadoodles and Natural Light. And then I'm also, because if you don't have 3 or 4 beverages in front of you, you're doing it wrong. Plus, I don't stop. It's becoming a problem, but it's a problem in a different way in that like, okay, like this feels like work now. So it must be work. So money must be following at some point somewhere down the line. I don't sleep. I don't stop. You know what I mean? I have Natural Light. I have Mountain Dew. I have water in front of me. And then I also, to top it off, I have a nice little cup of coffee. So,
wow, coffee on top of all that.
I mean, I've been having trouble pooping. No, I'm just kidding. That's a lie. That's a lie.
TMI.
No, I'm sorry.
Moving on.
Sorry to put that mental picture. But you don't want to hear about Ethan's whiskey. True. I mean, you probably do actually, because it's pretty interesting. I mean, alcohol.
Yeah, you know what? About. Hey, here. This is podcasting. This is excellent podcasting. Watch this, Gabe. Listener, if you want to know, stay to the end of the show, and we might let you know.
Shots fired. Yeah. Remember, we have to take a break and do something.
Or we'll figure it out.
Yeah, we'll figure it out. You might, just make your wife text you the name of it or something.
You can post credit. Oh, she's in bed. You know that. My wife works for UPS.
Yeah, for UPS. I forgot about that. Dumb,
she's
an idiot.
She's up before what do they call it? The butt crack of dawn.
Yeah, the early worm gets the worm, right?
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding.
makes that union money. That's for sure. So.
Yeah, well, that's good. I'm good for her. Shout out to Dion. God bless her. It's the first Game Club of 2021. I'm excited to be kicking it off with the Arkham series. A little known fact. There's a big content, conglomerate known as Kind of Funny, and they were announcing, on their anniversary today, all the things that they're doing. And guess what? They got a big project for the Arkham series. So we got to get ours out right now, right now. Before,
that's why you were like, dude, last night I'm getting a text. Are you ready? Because
let's make it happen. And Maestry's like, this is so out of form, like for Gabe, like that Gabe's like literally like
He's
2 months
motivated.
later, so well, I've budgeted my time better, and found out ways. I don't have there's a lot of trimmed fat. I'm excited to get back to projects. I have basically until March scheduled out of games, to do, and that's an exciting thing. I know now even more. It's like, okay, whatever I'm doing, it has to be for a project at this point, which is fine. It's all stuff I really want to play or watch or whatever.
Yeah.
So here we are.
Well, and you love to see it. I'm glad to see you on the horse with this. But they're just doing the thing that all of us are having to do right now is that everything old is new again because it's all you've got.
Yeah.
And so really you're only going to hold on to the best stuff. And I really feel like it doesn't matter how many people you have look at a game series like Arkham, you're going to get different takes. You're going to get different opinions, and you're going to have people that are going to appreciate different aspects of all of these games. And I really am looking forward to our discussion because there are things now, and this will be like my third playthrough of the Arkham Asylum game. Mm-hmm. And I feel like I'm still learning things. I'm still coming to things with almost a fresh perspective or a different perspective. And so, yeah, why not have multiple sources reviewing the same game? It's, well, not to tip my hat too much, but it's a good game. Why not?
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And, there's obviously no shade thrown. It's funny. I think you always, no matter how well you do, I was talking to an acquaintance last night, actually. And I was just saying, like, even whenever the numbers are good, like the good's just relative. And at the end of the day, like, you're more than a number. Numbers obviously help, but there's always going to be someone that has more likes or has more follows or has more subscribers or has a bigger audience or whatever. So it just feels good to be content to be busy is really all I'm trying to say. And, who knows, maybe someday, I think I've joked about this before. It's like, it'd be great to be able to pay for my phone bill or something, off of something I made about a video game. You know what I mean? I think that's the goal, is to try and just make it happen someday. And you can't get there without A, having fun, and B, putting in time and work, but C, just like making sure you're doing it for you first. So I totally agree.
And I totally feel your anxiety on programming. There are several podcasts I listened to over the years, and it seemed like for about a 3 or 4 episode stretch, I was talking about something, and then right before I was about to record it or release it, there were other podcasts that were doing the same thing just ahead of me, and I'm like, well, flip.
Yeah, literally.
I'm screwed. They're gonna think I'm ripping them off, but
literally,
it's funny how people
stupid.
gravitate to
which
those
is stupid.
things.
Like, you're not even a blip on their radar, and but it's weird to think about that. I mean, it's like, your stuff water seeks its own level. So I mean, your stuff will find the right people, and over time that level will rise, and it's just, it is what it
absolutely
is.
So don't fret it. This is a good thing we got going on here.
Yeah, dude, totally. And I always come back down to earth. I think whenever you get involved with all these projects and you're always busy and stuff, I think it's just so easy to kind of just get sucked into it. I mean, I understand now how like workaholics become a thing. I'm like, wow, like a workaholic, like that sounds stupid. Like that's not even that can't be possible. There's no way you'd take time away to work, and you'd take time away from spending time with your wife and doing all this stuff to work, right? You'd never do that. Wrong. It's because it's something you actually really enjoy. But it's a ever balancing process. I'm glad we're here. I'm glad we are going through the Arkham series. We've talked about it, kind of danced around it for a while. And I'm prepared to have this discussion, and I'm prepared to have the next discussion already too, because I already beat Arkham City, son. Hey,
I'm a percentage toward that goal as well.
Oh, okay. He's like, I have started that game. Yep.
I have. Yes.
So let's, before we get into the meat of the discussion too, one more thing, make sure you check the description to see all the different stuff we have going on. We got many different projects. We got some codes down there for you for Raise Energy and Pop Cult USA. Super happy that they're continuing to work with us. I think that they're continuing to work with us. But, check out the codes down there if you want to get some, energy drinks, if you want to be a spaz like me, or if you want to get some officially licensed geeked out swag. So let's move into the main conversation, which is, in fact, Arkham Asylum, Batman Arkham Asylum. I almost started with Rocksteady's, the developer Rocksteady's game, Batman Arkham Asylum, but that was going to be too much. So, Ethan, as I understand it, you have quite a bit of information there as to, who developed the game, when the game was released. Could you kind of read some of that off for us since you've done your homework and I haven't?
Arkham Asylum went into development in 2007. Rocksteady was approached as the publisher of it. They were relatively new to the game, but with some demos that they had presented, they were picked to put this game forward and develop it further. It was released in 2009 to critical acclaim. I looked at Metascores and the IGN scores and all of that, and I didn't see an 8 anywhere. It's 9 point something across the board, essentially, or 90s across the board. So critically acclaimed. It's a third person adventure game set in the Batman universe, heavily developed off of the Batman animated series combined with previous run comic books and things like that. So yeah, just a dearth of Batman history just rolled into this game and treated with respect. And that's essentially what Rocksteady has given us with this first outing in Arkham Asylum coming out in 2009.
Yeah, so we were kind of talking about this off mic before the show got started about like the hype, and you said you were basically kind of absent from that, for quite some time.
Yeah,
I have my own story about that, but I mean, what was your like first introduction to the Arkham series again?
It was funny. My first introduction to the Arkham series, at the time, Arkham City was out, and I was on a panel for Geekly Biweekly, a now defunct podcast from years ago. This would have been 2011, fall of 2011. And the guys were all playing Arkham City, but none of them had finished it yet.
Oh,
but they were all
Geekly Biweekly?
Yeah. I'm sorry, not Geekly Biweekly. My apologies.
Like, I'm trying to break my heart?
I'm
not throwing
I'm throwing shade your way. No, that's that 40-year-old brain kicking in. No, that was what was it? A Geekly Retrospect. That's what it was. Geekly Retrospect. And those guys were playing through that series and we're talking about it off mic. And as they were talking about, there's this great white shark in it, which references the old 60s Batman television series. And you've got Riddler, but it's not Jim Carrey's Riddler. It's something a little bit different. And Penguin's way different. They started going through it and describing their experience with the game. I had never heard of Arkham Asylum. I had not played Arkham City. I had not been paying attention. I was not a comic book game guy at the time because let's be honest, 2009, before 2009, did anybody play comic book games?
The only good one, fight me in the comments if you want to. The only good comic book game that ever came out were all from the same franchise. They were all from the Spider-Man franchise. So you had Spider-Man 2 was amazing. You had Spider-Man 3, which was pretty good. And you had Spider-Man like Web of Shadows, but everything else that was like licensed by WB or, pretty much any other superhero game. And there's a few exceptions, I guess, but as far as like the resounding, like we love this, no, there was nothing.
Well, and you'll have to agree, even with the Spider-Man games, they were all derivative. They were all derivative of what things that were tried in the movies or things that had been tried already on the cartoons. And so when you played them, there wasn't anything new there. There wasn't anything really to adventure with.
The big thing with Spider-Man 2, and I'm not trying to derail too much, I think the big thing with Spider-Man 2 was you had all these kids who weren't allowed to play Grand Theft Auto San Andreas. And basically you had a plethora of things to do outside of, the things that were derivative of the movies. You had like a Mysterio arc. You had quite a bit of substance to the actual game, but that was like the only exception. Like, I think that ended up being like a 30 or 40 hour game after it was all said and done.
But that's the thing, Gabe, and it's great that we're having this conversation because leading into Arkham Asylum and Arkham City, how many of your friends were talking about this great comic book game that they've been playing?
None.
And this unique adventure that has callbacks to everything.
None.
But is in it unto itself a great adventure.
Yeah. I mean,
and so that was how I got my introduction to Arkham. And I thought, well, I need to try this. Well, all the guys looked at me like I just dropped off the turnip truck. We're just like, don't play Arkham City. Go back, play Arkham Asylum. And so I picked that up in 2011, and I played Arkham Asylum for the first time.
Well said. I think my first introduction to Arkham Asylum was, there was because I was not even close. I was kind of in the same realm as you. I didn't have a PlayStation. I didn't have an Xbox, nothing. I think we had a Wii at that time. But I had played it at other people's houses, every now and then I'd get to play an hour here or there. And I was like, oh, wow, this is pretty cool. But I wouldn't really come to realize what the game was, or what the game series really was, basically until around the same time as you, like 2011 is whenever I had my first Arkham experience. And I did the bad thing and I played Arkham City first, actually. Because I didn't know. I didn't know, but
yeah.
I just to kind of piggyback off of everything you're saying, I think Arkham Asylum, when you really boil it down, at its core, it is actually like a Metroidvania. You need the claw to progress to get to the thing, and like you can see the areas you need to go, but you got to go somewhere else to get the thing to come back. And there's a lot of backtracking and zigzagging and going back and forth and all that stuff. And I love that. Like and it works perfectly with Batman because it's like, oh, this kind of makes sense, that he would be put in such a situation where he finds himself doing all these different things to where he has to kind of like think on his feet a little bit. You really felt like that's the key word, I guess, is you really felt like the Dark Knight in this situation.
Yeah.
Which makes the game really special.
Yeah. You were a detective.
Totally.
And that was the great thing about this game is it wasn't about brawling for 6 hours to get to the big boss at the end.
Yeah.
The game, all of these games so far, they make you think about what you're going to do and strategize.
Yeah.
And, oh yeah, you're going to put some guys in the hospital for a very long time. There's that element as well.
Yeah. And I want to talk about that for a second because to me, should we save the Batman ruins people's lives comment for that discussion? Should we wait until we've gotten like the core gameplay and stuff like that out of the way?
Yeah.
Or do we want to tackle it?
Let's talk about Batman's lack of morality.
Lack of morality now or at the end?
At the end.
Okay.
Yeah, let's talk about let's talk about that later.
Okay. So
I do have a couple of things additionally production wise I'd like to go through if we could.
Yeah, please go for it.
And I just want to bring attention to the voice acting. The voice acting is hands down some of the best that you're going to experience in a big sprawling game like what you get here with Arkham Asylum. The top characters, though, I definitely wanted to bring attention to. Kevin Conroy, of course, he's the voice of Batman. He has done animated DC, Batman in particular, for decades now.
Justice League, Injustice, Batman the Animated Series, Batman Beyond, like
several of the DC movies.
He is Batman. Like that's my Batman. Like that to me, I think we put that in our Batman discussion. Like that's my favorite Batman, hands down.
All you have to do is hear the voice and this character.
When I read comics, that's the voice I hear.
That's the voice you read in. Yeah, absolutely. I feel
no other
100% on that. So Kevin Conroy is awesome in this game, even though he probably speaks less than the villains that you encounter. He probably has fewer speaking lines, in fact. But still, Kevin Conroy, awesome. Mark Hamill as the Joker. Could it be anyone else? It couldn't. It couldn't. And not have the gravitas and the presence that character needs and that you wanted to see. And he brought it 100%.
And you think about it, there is no Star Wars anything going on right now. There is none of that. He was done with that character. He was done. He spent, in the late 90s, he was really mid 90s. That's whenever his voice acting career really picked up. And the fact that he was doing this and putting so much charismatic, genius into this character. And whenever it clicked in my mind that the Joker that I had been watching since I was a little kid in the animated series and in Batman Beyond, the Return of the Joker and stuff, whenever it clicked that was Luke Skywalker for me, I just fell in love with Mark Hamill, basically. You know what I mean? It became a much bigger thing to me than just him being Luke Skywalker. It was like, oh my God, he's Luke Skywalker and he's the freaking Joker. Are you kidding me? Like,
Yeah.
there is no other choice. I mean, maybe Troy Baker, maybe, but still, I mean, he does a good job, but his Joker is essentially just an imitation of Mark Hamill's Joker. It's the
Yeah.
same thing. Like,
Yeah.
but he does good. So yeah, I mean, Mark Hamill, there's no other choice.
Well, yeah, and it was a selling point for me when those guys were talking about, well, they got Mark Hamill to do the voice. And I was just like, that's the guy from the animated series back in the early 90s when I loved watching Batman. So yeah, of course, I had to be interested in that. Harley Quinn, voiced by Arlene Sorkin, another Batman animated series alum. And here she's come forward and is revoicing Harley Quinn. And just, oh man, just choose the audio scenery. I don't know if that's probably not an apt description, but she's such a presence for such a character, and you had to have someone like that. And of course, it was great to see her in that role. And then finally, I wanted to bring attention to Jim Gordon, who is voiced by Tom Kane. And this is really recent that this just happened, and I just wanted to mention, as of December 30th of 2020. Tom Kane suffered a stroke, and this has been on social media and whatnot. So you can find sources out there. It's obviously affected him. It's affected his vocal ability, and we hate to see it. It may or may not affect him to the point where he may have to consider retirement. That is a sad thing, because Tom Kane is a staple in voice acting for television, for movies, for video games. And you look at his credit list, and it's essentially anything that's had Star Wars or Marvel on it. I mean, for God's sake, the man was the voice of Yoda in the Clone Wars animated series. So,
Really?
Yeah, absolutely. And he's voiced everything Star Wars and Marvel that you can imagine, both animated and on computer screens for the last close to 3 decades now. He's been involved in one project after another with this.
He was Admiral Akbar in The Last Jedi.
There you go. Yeah. So
Wow.
just an important voice. And if it's been silenced because of this, that's truly sad. And I just wanted to mention, and I know you'd agree with me, Gabe, our hearts go out to the family, and we do certainly hope for a full recovery.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it's really sad to hear about that. I had no idea basically until you said basically before we started the show. And you hate to see whenever people, I mean, that I don't want to think, I mean, obviously someone dying in Hollywood that we have no attachment to, we have no, like, I don't want to say physical connection to, but we don't know them personally on a personal level.
Right.
Whenever you see it's like, oh, he did such and such, that character that I associate, whatever with, and like I had a connection with that character, like he's the voice of that. Like, wow, yeah, I hope nothing happens to that person, and I hope he ends up being okay. So yes, definitely our hearts go out to the family. Thank you for mentioning that. That's
absolutely.
Absolutely. Was there anything else on that docket at the beginning there?
No, I'm pretty much covered on the high points.
Okay, awesome. So let's kind of talk about the story. Would you use your eloquently silver tongue to explain? You knew I was going to make you ask. I'm surprised you didn't.
No,
I'm surprised you didn't get your freaking notes together for that, you freaking nerd.
You get to see the monkey dance.
Yeah, exactly. Dance, monkey. No, I'm just kidding. You're trying to commandeer my show. Don't think I don't feel it. You know what I mean? No, I'm just kidding.
I will.
No, but will you try? Actually, I could actually really use help with that, because I'll be like,
Yeah,
So
I will try and do this with as few ums and uhs as possible.
Okay,
but I make no guarantees. Here we go. No, Arkham Asylum. You essentially start. I love the opening of this game, just as a sidebar, but you are present with Joker as he's being reinstituted into the Arkham Asylum. He's being brought back after escaping, and through the course of the game, you determine that he wanted to be brought back in because he had this nefarious plan for essentially showing up Batman. And I'm really condensing this game a lot with this description. So you find out that he has had a doctor developing this Titan serum, and things went badly. He ends up double crossing the Doctor. There's a small spoiler for you, but he essentially gets a hold of the Titan. He's been injecting it into various inmates that have been brought in from Blackgate Prison. So there's a lot of brawling that happens, and some of these guys are really jacked on Titan, supersized. And so you got to fight through them. You have to eventually make your way to the Joker, defeat his Titan-infused henchman, and then you find Joker himself, who is now he's on his last. It's his last play. So he injects himself with a Titan, and you take him on, and that's your big boss battle at the end. You beat him, credits roll, and it's on to the next game.
Until after the credits, whenever Scarecrow reaches his hand out of the water.
Oh, that's true.
So you kind of get, I think
that's the hard thing. You cannot condense the story into just one through line unless you actually sit and think about it and distill it, because there is a lot of tangents and a lot of rabbit holes that you go down in this game.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I find it,
Scarecrow being one of them.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just super interesting and really convenient, if this was part of the Joker's plan or not, to literally have every single psychopath, except for Penguin, on Arkham Island at the same time. You kidding me? Come on. I mean, it's maybe they didn't know that they were going to be making another game, or it was going to turn into such a big thing. Maybe
it's interesting you bring that up, because Rocksteady determined that they had too many characters. There were too many villains that were written into the game, and they had to pull some out. They had to cull some.
Which makes
Mad Hatter, for one, he was supposed to be in the game. They ended up saying, it's too much. Let's pull his segment out. There were sequences where you were going to have to either drive the Batmobile or fly the Batwing, and they determined it's too much. We got to pull all of that out. So, they had to make some hard choices. You say all of the villains are there. They weren't.
Yeah, not all of them. I mean, his most adequate, most of his most adequate foes, that everyone, the most popular, that are all there at the same time. Ivy's there, Harley Quinn's there, Joker's there, Scarecrow's there, Bane's there. I mean,
it is
Zaz
the all-star list.
It really is. Right. And I mean, they took the right amount.
Because,
it's crazy to
honestly,
say
Calendar Man, who cares?
Yeah, I mean,
there.
Well, and that's the thing is, I think they did a good idea. A good idea. They had a good idea in saving those side characters for what would become Arkham City later on, I think.
Yes.
And really, we're like, okay, these are side questy things. Let's put that in a open world of sorts. So to me, I'm glad that they went. It still feels at times like I'm always running into someone different, which at times was cool. Oh, and Killer Croc's in it too. So there's that.
Oh yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
So always kind of taking time and running into different people and stuff. As I was saying before, Zoom decided to freaking ruin everything as per usual, whatever though.
Oh God, it's 2020 all over again.
Literally, it's never going to change. I'm always going to freaking dip out for whatever reason. I hate my internet, hashtag content cowboy. So the first 5 hours, I felt like I was always running into these enemies, new stuff was popping up. I'm like, oh my God, this is amazing. And that first encounter with Scarecrow might be one of the best video. Any time you encounter Scarecrow in this game, might be some of the best video game cutscene interactive content ever made. In the top 5, probably. Hands it was down. Hitting me in at an emotional level. And I was like, I'd completely forgotten about a lot of it, which was kind of interesting. But
let's talk about for just a second. That first time you go in, that's in the morgue, right?
Yes.
And I am not a scary movie or scary video game player. It's like Dead Space. No, never. Silent Hill. Forget about it. No, I'm never touching those games. And then suddenly I'm standing in this morgue and the doors are flapping open and everything. And I'm like, I'm in one of those games,
literally,
and I don't like it.
Literally. Well, go ahead.
But I was just gonna say, and then they take you forward a little bit more, and they transition into this sequence, and it's just great. It's gorgeously done on screen. And I've never seen a game that's been able to take two different. I mean, we're talking about a third-person perspective game that you're playing through, and then suddenly you're playing a side scroller.
Yep.
if you think about it, and it's just a beautiful transition to go from that one game type to that meta game in it. So,
and it was just like seamless at the same time, you know.
absolutely.
And that's you know, when those doors are flapping, I was in there for like 3 minutes. I was like, what the heck do I even do? How the heck do I get out of here? I'm like, I know there's something I have to go look for, but in my headphones, I got my afterglows fixed, and it's after PDP took over them, so it's got some good electronics in there. So literally, it's stereo all the way through, and it's like, out, you know,
Oh
like
yeah,
coming through the back of my head, and I'm like, I got to get out of here. And like eventually, I remember I got to freaking just walk out the door, and then of course, you know, Bruce's Fears playing in and stuff like that. It was just really well done. I just, you know,
yeah.
it's
As you know, if that had been a movie sequence, it would have been Oscar worthy. You know, or if depending on how the effects were done, it was
I think
great.
so.
It was
And I
great.
mean, even whenever he's hallucinating later on, you know, and you're fighting the skeletons, I'm like,
Yeah.
how smart to like really kind of play into those elements that people really love, like the horror genre and stuff, and give them just a little bit. It's like, hey,
Oh yeah.
we're thinking of that,
Yeah.
you know, and stuff like that. So it's really well done. I don't know about you. At the beginning of the game, whenever I first started and I was kind of doing it, I was like, I don't know, this hasn't aged super well or whatever. But the thing about aging is you have to give it like a little bit of time to transition. And then like 2 hours in, I was like, oh my God, like this game is still amazing, you know, in terms
Yeah.
of gameplay and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So as you mentioned before, you know, I kind of would like to, what do you say we like focus just kind of like on the gameplay aspect a little bit?
Sure.
And maybe, you know, maybe we could incorporate the morality aspect into this part of the discussion as well. It seems
Okay.
like the right time. So let's just spend a few minutes here. So, you know, the combat essentially, for lack of a better word, it's all reflexive, right? So you see, you know, you're about to get punched. Like someone's, you know, a guy's about to punch you. His headlights up. You hit triangle or Y or whatever. I don't know what you played on. You block it. You do the thing. You unlock more. You basically have a skill tree of sorts. But I don't know. As you unlock more abilities, it just kind of feels a little anticlimactic at times. You know what I mean? Like this is a time before we had so much choice for console gaming, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Where you could really actually develop a skill tree and stuff like that. And I just think if they ever remade this game, that would be amazing to really kind of take some cues from like Assassin's Creed and stuff like that as to things you could really make yourself feel like more of a predator, you know, and more of like a hunter. And like you could do, go ahead.
To an extent, I agree, but not 100% because that brawling aspect is not my favorite part of the game. And I really disliked it on console because holding the controller, I don't know what it was. My reactions were never good enough, it felt like. And I was always getting in the middle of a melee and couldn't get out of the group. And so I was constantly getting hit from the side. This last time playing through, the keyboard and mouse was different for me. And it actually, I find I'm playing better with keyboard and mouse than I was with the controller. So that's made it a little bit easier. That's one aspect of it. But honestly, the brawling of it, I don't appreciate as much. And I think what you're talking about is the strategy and coming at it from a different way. I think that's the, what is it? That's the Metal Gear type gameplay where
Like
you're hanging off the
like
gargoyles
and stuff like that. Yeah. So
yeah, and I really found myself appreciating that type of gameplay a lot more than just the rock'em sock'em.
no, I agree. And that's what I'm talking about in terms of like the newer Assassin's Creed type stuff is
okay.
You have so many tools at your disposal because to me, I approach every situation. I'm literally playing in X-ray mode basically the entire time to where it's like, okay, I don't want to be seen. I'm the Dark Knight. You know, I really shouldn't have to be fighting that much. I want to be a stalker. I want to be able to get in, get out undetected. The guys see and they're like, oh my God, help, you know, like, you know, get them like kind of panicking a little bit. And if they ever remade this game, and there's so many modern things they could do to where if you had multiple trees where it's like, okay, you can invest in a gadget that makes you do X, you know, such and such, and you just have more customization. And that's all I meant. But I mean, you know, there's a game from 2009. So whenever I'd see those skills, there was never a question in mind as to if I was going to get them all. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, it's just a matter of time, which that's, you know, 10 years ago or I guess, over 10 years ago at this point, that's what video games were, you know, in a lot of ways. But
remind me sometime, Gabe. I need to get you the Kotobukoya Batman as a ninja. and you need that for your mantle. So
Oh yeah, please do. I would
because you seem like
happily
you
take it.
appreciate that. So
Oh, I would happily take that. Batman Ninja is freaking awesome, and you're a nerd.
I don't
if you think
even
otherwise.
know. I don't know what that goes for these days. It's probably $300 or $400, but
Well, I mean,
anyway,
it would be a welcome addition to the old, the
I'm
old
sure it would.
studio. So
I'm
yeah,
sure it would.
definitely get that for me. We're kind of continuing with the gameplay, just the traversal, using the back claw. I found myself appreciating the later gadget upgrades and stuff like that you get in the later games. Arkham City does a really good job on that with a technical aspect, and then it's even done in a lot of ways even better in Arkham Knight. I miss the grapple, the grapple boost that you get
Yeah.
in Arkham Knight. I found myself like frantically tapping X at the beginning, being like, "What the flip, Kip?" Like I can't. There's no, like none of
Yeah.
that. And but the way the gadgets work, the way the combat works, it's funny you mentioned not being able to get any reflexes, missing reflexes. Because the same thing happened to me. No matter how much I would press, there was always a guy that was one step ahead of me, and they fixed
Yeah.
that later in other games, later in the series. But it was frustrating. Like, okay, I freaking hit triangle at the right time. I know I did.
I know
And
I hit that button.
yeah, I know I hit that in plenty of time to where, but you know what it was? I think they wanted to keep you from getting those streaks. They wanted it, they wanted to make it harder for you. And
Yeah. And man, I like I said, I've just spent 10 minutes decrying the brawling aspect, but don't you feel like a BA individual when you put a combo together of 25 or 30? I mean,
yeah, whenever the trophy popped, whenever the trophy popped
there
for
you go.
40, I was like,
Yeah.
I am freaking unstoppable. Like, don't even freaking try.
And that is the thing about this game that I found myself really enjoying, particularly here with Arkham Asylum, is it really does reward you if you stick with it and you play the game that they've put in front of you and utilize the environment around you to the best of your ability and hone your reflexes just a little bit. It rewards big time.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think one of my favorite things, though, in combat, they took it out of the later games, but there's one thug line in particular when you're fighting, and like out of nowhere, you just hear, ah! Like he just like charges at you. And like that guy, every single time, it made me laugh. And like, whenever it's like he's all, like grabbing his face, for a second.
Yeah.
It's just really overdone and over the top and very, very comic booky, but not like Bam Pow comic booky, like Frank Miller comic booky, where, Dark Knight Returns, whenever Batman is just getting freaking destroyed by that, uber grunt guy, and then he comes back in the rain and the mud and he's just like taking that guy to Pound Town. Like, that's the type of combat we're getting in this. It's Frank Miller Batman combat. It's dark, it's gritty.
Don't try and count how many times somebody's knee gets folded the wrong direction, or elbows or shoulder. I mean, yeah. Now let's talk about it.
Yeah, because I'm
there are a lot of men in this game now that will be, as a friend of mine, Brandon, has said about this game, there's a lot of guys that are forevermore drinking their dinner from a straw, and that's all they'll be able to do for the rest of their lives.
Mm-hmm.
It's brutal.
It's bad.
It's bad.
There's just no getting around it.
Yeah.
It takes, which it's kind of in a way, I think back in the day, the first time I played it, it was like, oh yeah, you're young and you're not looking for violence. But I think, you know what I mean? But it's there. You're not thinking about it. And for me to see these voices and these characters, and I'm already thinking of like, oh, this is my Batman basically, and my characters, and to see them kind of grow up in a way, like the content has grown up, the message has grown up, and to see it's like, oh, it's actually always been this. Batman has always been the guy that has no problem. He's like, I'm not going to kill you. I'm just going to make your life miserable, which honestly, in a way, it's like, oh, you might as well. I'm like just whatever like I'll hit like a combo button and I'm like, oh, sweet. I know. Oh God, you broke his arm. Like, come on, you really broke it. I mean, he probably won't ever be able to use it again.
Yeah. Just finish the guy. Cause literally he's worthless from this point on.
Like, how is he going to recover from that? I don't understand.
Yeah.
And it adds, it's not like the most pleasant thing of all time. I mean, obviously it's a fun game and whatever, and it is a comic book game, but whenever you actually think about it, it kind of just adds more detail and depth and makes the character of Batman, more interesting, but it really makes it interesting the relationship he has with the Joker, in my
Yeah.
opinion.
Yeah.
Just in terms of like, you should kill this guy, like you really should, but you're not going to, because what you're flawed. You're a flawed individual, and I think the combat kind of adds to that and is intentionally made a certain way as to Batman is crazy. Like, he is a crazy person, yet we paint him as the good guy and inherently try and relate to him because he automatically is the good guy. I guess he is the lesser of two evils. So go
It's so
ahead.
funny to think about how, throughout the late 60s and throughout the 70s, there was this whole anti-hero uh, wave that happened. In movies and television, it was the anti-hero, the guy that was obviously bad, but he was the guy that you were rooting for. And it amazes me that never happened with Batman.
Yeah.
Batman was always the good guy, right?
Mhm.
He was always the good guy in the comic book pages. Adam West's Batman was okay. But and you could speak to that more than I could, because here I'm going to reveal something. I've never read very many of the comic books, just the high points.
Well, Ethan,
year
I
one.
I hope you enjoyed your time here. This Arkham City review. No, I'm just kidding. I'm
love
joking.
the game, though.
I'm joking. No. Please continue.
But what I was saying is, Adam West Batman is always, he's like this is this cheesy. Yeah, exactly. But he's the good guy. There's nothing bad about him. And it's shocking that in the television and in the movie portrayals, Batman wasn't ever drugged down to that level of anti-hero. But in this game, that is exactly what he is. If you spend 5 moments to think about it. So.
Yeah. I mean, it's so funny, like, having more knowledge now and like really have done research over the past, decade at this point of Batman and some of the things he's done. He has killed before, Dark Knight Returns. Have you read it? There's strong evidence that points to him killing the Joker in The Killing Joke. There's a lot of things there where it's like, and there's also been news stories coming out. It's like, well, what if Batman was bad? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
And that's a super interesting concept to explore. But yeah, like, he is the good guy, but only kinda. He's the good guy in that he's keeping all of the other crazy people at bay. Yet he is just as crazy as them. I mean, at the end of the day. And I mean, in his mind, this definitive line of, no, I can't do this thing, or I can't go there. That's like his biggest flaw.
Yeah.
Because he'll do everything else that is arguably worse, but he's not going to pull the trigger, absolutely not.
Yeah.
So it's a super interesting, kind of, it's interesting to think of like the archetype that it has spawned, with other characters and stuff like that, and how many people take inspiration from this character who is flawed to his core. And it's just super interesting. You look like you want to say something. Go for it.
No, I was just going to say, you talked about when you were young, not thinking about what Batman was and what he truly represented. And I was just going to agree with that. Is we came up at a time when Batman was the good guy.
Mm-hmm.
And this game kind of helps you to see it from a different perspective and to truly understand just how dark he has to go in order to do the things that he does. I think that's something that's being explored more in more recent iterations in the comics and in movies, certainly. But yeah, this game was kind of an eye opener for me as far as Batman was concerned.
I think this is arguably just as dark as Arkham Knight in a lot of ways. I feel like they kind of went more of a darker route in Arkham Knight, whereas you kind of find the sweet spot with Arkham City where it truly feels more like comic booky. But this feels like straight up like Detective Comics. Like, this doesn't feel like a Batman comic. This feels like Detective Comics, and there is a difference. Like, you got the serial killers and the murderers, and it's like whenever it's like, oh, Zaz has been up to work, been up to some mischief. Why don't you find it? It's like, oh my God, like Zaz is a freaking psychopath, and
he's a butcher.
He really is, and he likes to animate his scenes. He will. Like, I remember reading a comic, I think it wasn't Long Halloween, I don't remember, but he had basically killed this family, and then positioned them in the front room to where they were still watching television. And it's just like the things that Zaz has done and how they focus so much on him in all of these games, really. It's just kind of like, wow, yeah, Batman, I'm glad you're around, to keep people, to keep Gotham safe from those guys. But as the games move on, we're going to kind of talk about the relationship that Batman has in Gotham, and kind of why he's like a physical, the things that Batman does and the things that he kind of takes care of and that he takes part in are kind of a representation, almost a personification of what Gotham City really represents. There's a lot of lore that like the comics kind of dive into, and because at face value, I always kind of saw Gotham City as like, oh, like this is just a bad city, like whatever. But it actually goes pretty deeper than that. Go ahead.
Well, no, I'm sorry, because a thought just occurred to me, but you need to finish your thought before I go.
Well, that's all I had. That's all I had, really. So
cool. All right, I'll take it from there then. All of this that we're talking about with Batman and what he does and who he is as a character does not detract from the fact that this game is a fascinating examination into Batman and the characters around him, and that the characters that he has to face. And yeah, I think you're absolutely right. Talking about his relationship with the city of Gotham going in the further games going forward is going to be incredible. But this feels like a good time for us to focus on the environment of Arkham itself.
Yeah, that's a great segue. Why don't you take it from here for the, kind of explaining that?
Several years ago, after playing Arkham Asylum and Arkham City, I was introduced to Gotham by Gaslight, the comic. And that's just a really cool concept and a really cool comic. It tells the story of Batman in a Gotham of the late 19th century.
Yeah.
And the imagery of that comic, and it's very derivative of Jack the Ripper. I think Jack the Ripper is in Gotham.
He is the villain.
He is the villain in that comic. And it's so fantastic. And I've always loved that particular treatment of Batman. And I feel like we got some of that here in Arkham Asylum, in the old parts of Arkham.
Yeah.
And, like the old wicker wheelchair from the turn of the century, the 19th to 20th century, that is just a creepy piece of medical equipment. Totally. And to see that off in the corner somewhere just gives the environment that history and weight and gravitas of all of the horrible things that have happened there. Some good things possibly, but mostly it's an environment
where Arkham is not
bad things happen.
Place.
Absolutely.
It is a horrible place.
And there are just the way they built that game to have those nooks and crannies where it's things that aren't important to the telling of the story, but it just makes the environment so rich. And that is one of the things that I really do appreciate about Arkham Asylum, maybe more than maybe even the first time that I played the game.
Yeah, I agree. And like trying to look for all of the recording tapes and like try and find as many as I could. I mean, obviously you have to kind of go back and backtrack, and I know I'm not going to take that much time. But being able to kind of like look at each situation and be like, oh, Jeremiah Harkham, his chronicles, scanning the stones and like giving that whole thing, like getting kind of a bigger story there and things like that. Yeah, I think it really just gives you the sense of like, wow, horrible things have happened here. Yeah. We're keeping psychopaths here. So yeah, sure. Makes sense. Yeah, no, I think the environment is great. There were times, kind of like in the first, like I said, the first few hours, it was fun. The charm was there in terms of like, there's always something happening and moving along. And I feel like the end of the game lulls a bit, and it might be because I just found like the encounter with Croc to be just kind of annoying and stupid.
All right. I wholeheartedly agree with you.
Like that whole sequence, Croc sequence is dumb. Poison Ivy, it's not dumb. It's just, it's not hard. It's not challenging. It's like a mini game of sorts. And then it
takes you all of 10 seconds to figure out the mechanics of what you need to do. And then it is a long, drawn-out process of 15 minutes of gameplay.
Yes, I mean,
it's doing those three basic elements over and over and over. And yeah, I will say that's probably the low point of the game, in my opinion.
That
is the sewer.
Yeah, I mean, that leading into the boss fight with Ivy, I just don't really. That whole Poison Ivy arc and just kind of the amount of times you have to go back and forth, it just feels a little.
I don't know. I kind of like the poison ivy.
I'm sure you.
That's some scenery.
You're a
No,
horrible person. You're a terrible. You're a terrible human being. No, I'm just
sorry.
kidding.
I retract that
You know,
comment.
no, I'm teasing. I think I would have liked it more had they put it in the beginning of the game.
Yeah.
That I
Okay.
think it would have fit better there. Uh, and I think it would have been better. I think the whole Croc sequence could have been better had you actually made that literally like the last thing you have to do before you go fight Joker.
Before you go fight Joker.
Like
Yeah.
literally, because he's there, and just the whole sequence of doing all that, it just, that's the most well lit sewer I've ever seen in my entire life. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
It just
And,
took
and convenient. Those pallets were laid out there perfectly.
just like that. I think there were things in the game where I'm just kind of like, oh yeah, this is a game.
Yeah.
This isn't
Yeah.
this isn't a movie, and it does the game thing. But then again, we're not. They had innovated enough already, but there were things in there that made me think like, oh, this is still a video game, and like I was immersed, but now I'm not.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which takes away from it for me, but it doesn't. It's not a nitpick, but it's not such a huge point, but it's there. It takes away
Yeah.
from this game being quote unquote timeless, I think, but in a lot of ways it is timeless. So I think there were some things that I would have shuffled around a little bit better, but I think the overall aesthetic and the way they tied things together, was really well done. And I think I wish other characters would have stood out more. You fight Bane for all of 10 seconds, basically.
And he's gone after
and then
that.
He's gone.
Yeah.
But you could have made him kind of more interesting. You could have used more of Bane because he's the reason the Titan even really exists when you think about it. And then he's just gone. Like in Arkham City, Batman says something like, "Last time I saw you, you were wrapped around the hood of my car," and you help Bane after the game's over and all that stuff. And it's like, yeah, but I wanted more of that in Arkham Asylum. I wanted more of like vulnerable Bane, like where he's not really like strong and stuff like that. That could have been a cool relationship to play off of, but they didn't do that, So
Yeah.
And this all is kind of, going into the gameplay aspect and stuff like that. But is there anything specifically about the gameplay that you'd like to move on to before we get to like the high points, our favorite sequences of the game?
No, well, just about the gameplay itself. I love how this game is. It's obvious that they had to take some elements out and they had to condense some things. I really feel like Rocksteady did a fantastic job of pulling out the right things because it wasn't time yet.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that some of the things that did get pulled out were later introduced into Arkham City and they were done better, or they're probably in Arkham Knight and done even better. But for the opening salvo, the opening story that we get here in Arkham Asylum, the gameplay, the genesis of it, the gameplay matches the game.
Totally.
They're not too ambitious with it.
Yes.
And it gives you you want to fly? That's great. Go to the top of Arkham Tower and fly your 1,000 meters, pop that trophy,
Yeah.
and you get a sense of it. Now we come back in Arkham City and we'll revisit that later.
Yeah.
And it's cool. It's better, but they gave you just enough of it in this game and it makes sense
to make you want, like whenever the next one got announced, like, oh my God, it's freaking open world. Like,
oh yeah.
And it's like, whoa, like it's just enough. It is like, I can't even think of a good analogy for this or a good example.
I would just describe it as this: Arkham Asylum is the perfect tutorial for the rest of the Arkham series.
That's a great way to put it. And had there been 3 Arkham games that were all Metroidvania style, I don't think it would have worked.
Yeah.
But here, I don't think Arkham Asylum gets enough love, as the first part of the series, because everyone always talks about how great Arkham City is, and that's great. It is probably the best out of the 3 games, or 4 if you want to include Arkham Origins. But there's something really special here with Arkham Asylum, and it's like, man, I could see if someone told me their favorite game of all time was Arkham Asylum, I wouldn't bat an eye. I'd be like, oh yeah, that's a freaking awesome game with some small minor problems with it, but a lot of that's the product of the time. You can't change that.
Yeah.
So let's, if that's all we have to say about the gameplay, and kind of Batman's moral compass as a whole for right now, what was like your favorite sequence of the game, do you say?
Oh gosh. I think we've already talked about it. That whole here I say I don't like scary games, scary movies, but that whole sequence transitioning into Scarecrow, that is frightening.
Yeah.
And I was just like you. I had headphones on, and when you hear the whispers behind you and
Get
everything,
out.
you
Yeah.
you feel like you're in a different game for that moment.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, you're not playing a game. This is something different. And it's great when a game can transport you like that. And I
Yeah.
felt like that's what happened. That was a great transition. I personally, I actually uh like there are several of those stealth levels where you're around the room and you got to hang down off the gargoyles and take
Mhm.
out the henchmen and you got to sneak around. I actually really enjoyed the botanical garden sequence for that. It was a different environment than what you'd been in for the several hours beforehand that you've been playing in. I really enjoyed the detail that went into that particular set piece, that particular part of the game where you're stealthily trying to take out those henchmen. Um, that for all of the stealth parts, that was probably the most enjoyable for me. Basically because the environment was a little bit different than what we'd
Yeah.
gotten in the rest of the series or the
And
rest of that game.
and they had, kind of made the hardest versions of all the enemies available in that section. It's like you kind of get the
Yeah.
feeling of like, all right, you better take your time because this is the last time you're gonna get like a section like this, and then it's
Yeah.
over.
Yeah.
I think for me, I'm a big stealth guy. I love, like I said, I enjoy Assassin's Creed. I enjoy, the Metal Gear Solid games and just the level of choice that you have. My favorite thing to do in Metal Gear Solid is be like, okay, how far can I get before I actually have to kill somebody? Like how far, like how good can I sneak around? Or in Metal Gear Solid 5, it was awesome whenever they let you literally go through every mission with rubber bullets to where you can't kill anybody. And stuff like that. It was just a really I like the stealth elements of things. And, I think for me, I was just getting excited about moving on to Arkham City where I was like, okay, I'm done. Like I'm ready to
Yeah.
get through this, and I've been playing this the past few days, like nonstop, and I'm kind of ready to move on. Um, but so that's like your favorite sequence, that last like little stealth sequence where you kind of have the multiple levels and then, that stuff.
Yeah.
That was
It caps that whole aspect of that gameplay.
totally. Yeah, I agree with that. I think honestly, probably my favorite part of the game, aside from the first two times you encounter Scarecrow, it's like a gotcha. But then the third time it happens, did you ever see that Family Guy skit whenever Peter keeps getting de-pants and he's like, Randy, you know what I mean? Like, and it just keeps happening. And like by the fifth time, you're like, okay, let's wrap it up.
Yeah.
That's kind of how I felt the third time of Scarecrow. It was like, gotcha, and the first two times it was awesome. And I mean, I'm not talking about the cinematic side of things. I'm talking more about, okay, I'm here again. This is the third time I've been in this dream world and I know the tricks. And if I make one little wrong move, I know exactly what I have to do, but you're going to make me do it anyways. And it's like, there you are, little bat. He's all, it's like, okay, dude, this is annoying a little bit. It just slight irritation. But the first time that happens, kind of like what you said with the flapping doors, I mean, I had completely forgotten about that sequence. The first part of the game for me, like the first 2-3 hours where you're basically trying to get to the Batcave, is some of the best, like some of the most fun, like in that entire
Yeah,
game.
because they're showing you off the buildings, they're showing you the island, and yeah, no,
And
it's enjoyable.
and honestly, the length of the game, it kind of feels more like, in some ways, kind of like a Resident Evil game, because Resident Evil games aren't very long.
Yeah,
But you could beat them in one long setting if you know where to go and what to do. And I feel like this game almost kind of falls into that realm where you could probably get this beaten in probably like 8 hours if you were really like booking it and you knew where to go.
yeah,
Um, I
because
never,
I think I just tallied just over 8
yeah. So I
in
mean,
in my last playthrough.
yeah, I think I was like 11 or 12 hours or something like that, for the
Yeah,
amount of time that I took with it and stuff. But I really like that whole first sequence where they're showing you everything and doing all that. Go ahead. What is it?
there is one aspect of the game I'd like to ask you about: the
Okay.
Riddler trophies. Did you even bother with them in this game?
Yeah, so whenever there'd be a riddle that would pop up, I was like, okay, I've never really gone for these before. And there's only certain things, I like to get platinum trophies on games if I really like a game. And to me, I think it's like 100 Riddler trophies or something you have to get the platinum, I think, or something like that. I got way more than I thought I was going to. I think I got like 40% of them or something like that, but I think there's a couple hundred throughout the island.
Yeah.
So, to me, it was like, I'm right here, and this doesn't seem like a very hard puzzle. Like, oh, I need to look for an instrument, or I need to look for a whatever, and stuff like that. So, yeah, I mean, I definitely did spend more time than I ever have in this game in particular trying to get the trophies. Did you get? How many did you get?
I don't remember how many I got. The 3 times that I've played this game, the first 2 times I spent a lot of, I didn't want to have to go back and get a trophy. So I spent a lot of time trying to get them the first time through. And that makes the game really long and cumbersome.
I agree.
I played this time and did not focus on the Riddler trophies at all. And when you eschew the Riddler trophies out of your gameplay and just concentrate on the story that's being told, it's a wonderful game.
Yeah,
absolutely wonderful.
I agree.
But I will say this, going and getting those trophies is a fantastic secondary game.
Yeah.
And so I will be going back into Arkham Asylum just to play that part of the game, just to get the trophies. I would recommend to anybody that's maybe, if that's even possible, playing it for the first time, separate the 2 games. Play one, play the other. Don't try and play them both at the same time.
Yeah, I agree with that. And like, you make a good point. I think it drops you right before you fight Joker, to where you can explore the island, and do the thing. You have all your gadgets, you have all your stuff. There's more nooks and crannies to explore. Go to every building, do your thing, look for the stuff, do the puzzles if you have the patience to do so. I think there were times where I'm like, okay, the game's showing its age a little bit here in this area or whatever. It's like, okay, I know what I have to do, but I don't feel like doing it because this is 2021 and I don't want to, so yeah, I think that's good, kind of separate your 2 playthroughs a little bit. So was there a sequence in the game that you weren't necessarily like, where you're kind of like, I basically already said all mine, but was there one in particular? Well, actually I have one more. I have one big one. Was there anything in particular where you're kind of like, okay, this is dumb?
No, honestly, this is
seriously,
this game has gotten better each time. Now, I think probably the first and second times that I would have played through the game, I would have agreed with you that the second and the third Scarecrow sequence gets a little long in the tooth. For some reason, figuring your way up the elevator shaft is annoying, but once you've done it a couple of times, you know what to expect.
Yeah. And
like this last time that I played through it, there wasn't anything that felt like, all right, I really hate this, I want to move on. Is it a little longer in places like the sewer that we talked about before? Sure, I can agree with that. It would have been nice for it to be a couple of minutes shorter, but there wasn't really anything that I found myself just really disliking at any point.
Yeah. So okay. Well, I'm just going to transition, and this is going to be probably like, I feel like we're going to kind of bring this game up again, as we go through the series. So I don't feel bad, ending it real, as in the next few minutes here, but the ending didn't bother you at all.
The Joker ending?
Yeah.
No, I mean, this whole night that you're playing through on the island, it's been building to this, and it's, Joker has had his plan in motion, and you can see, and I love how at different times you're going through the East Courtyard, and you can see those henchmen out there. They're building something. Yeah. And there's several times you pass through there and you can see they're building something. And then at the end, you got the fireworks going off in the distance. They've built the Joker face. It's time to party.
It's time for the show.
It's time for the show. And it felt, to me, it's always felt natural. And, you got to go face the 2 big henchmen and brawl in the arena there. And that's suitably difficult. And then once you get through that, then you face Joker himself. And I don't know, as far as bosses and final sequences go, it felt very linear to me.
I get the whole setup and everything, and I think that's great. The execution in terms of like the way Joker looks and the way he behaves sucked me right out of the game. I'm like, really? Joker would never look like this or do this. I don't think Joker would ever do this. I don't. And like, okay, if he did, if he knew the effects of what was happening, Joe, I mean, he's been using his henchmen all night to fight you and do this thing in the Titans. If he had stuff to throw in front of you, why? I mean, I don't think it doesn't feel to me like he would have roided himself out. And if he did, I just don't like the way he looked personally. Because you don't even fight him. You don't even fight him. You stun him. He falls off the thing, and it's like boom. It's not like you fight. It's not like you're actually feel like you're brawling with him. He's having his little henchmen come at you and
he's putting on a show.
Yeah, and peck at you and do the thing. Yeah. And I get it. Thematically, it's great. It works. It's like, oh yeah, look what I've done, Gotham. But I feel like it would have made so much more of an impact had he been in his cheap purple suit and doing the thing and be like, look what I've done, check this out. And then, like, this is my biggest problem with this game is just the way the way he feels at the end, because it's wrong to say that he wouldn't inject himself with the stuff. That's wrong to say. Because he has been building towards it. And he obviously, it's like, I went through all the trouble of getting this formula and getting this serum. So obviously I'm going to use it. I've used it on my henchies. I'm going to use it on myself, but it just feels wrong.
I would like to say, and I think I caught this for the first time this last playthrough. He does mention, you've left me no choice. I'm going to have to do this. So it's Joker with his back against the wall.
Yeah, it's true.
I just want to point out, this is now 2 genres in which we are taking opposite points of view on a performance by Mark Hamill. I just want to point that out.
I knew you were going to say something like that. And it's maybe, and it is, it's the exact same type of situation because you're not a comic guy and I am. And I've read the comics and I'm like, this feels so wrong. Like this feels so un-Joker.
And I feel for you. I really do. But this is where we're at.
And it isn't the thing of I hate it. I'm not like you, Ethan. I don't hate this thing. You know what I mean? I'm kidding. I'm sorry. I know.
I'm not that guy you tweeted earlier.
Dude, did you see that? What the flip? That was ridiculous.
Wow.
I don't even understand. I'm like,
see, guys, Wannabe crew, I could be so much worse.
You could, and we wouldn't have you on. I mean, that was just, we would just make fun of you.
Exactly.
We would make fun. I mean, that's what we're doing with this guy is we're making fun of him and laughing him. And it's like, my biggest fear is that people don't take me seriously because of my age. So
now I have a goal for 2021. So
bring it on, bring it on, Chrome Dome. Like, no, I don't hate.
No, that is excessive.
And you are right. You are right. He does say, you've left me no choice. I have to do this. I've got to do this, Bats, like that whole thing. Did you have to make him look so roided out? Like, because I get how it plays into the plot moving forward, and it's great. Yeah. It's awesome. But did you have to make him look like Bane? Could you not have he's a thin guy. He's not like those other guys. Why is he bigger than the other Titan guys? I don't understand that. That makes no sense. So I don't know. There's just, it's a borderline nitpick.
Maybe if they hadn't cranked it to 11.
Literally
9.5, and you would have been a little bit more okay with it.
The thing that makes Bane work, in my opinion, is that he is still a big guy. He's a huge guy, but he's not a monster.
Yeah.
And that's what they made Joker to be in this. They made him to be an otherworldly monster with a mohawk. Why does he have a mohawk?
Looks cool.
Okay. Well,
I'm sorry. No,
that's my biggest thing.
I feel you. I see where you're coming from. You're absolutely right. I'm not as beholden to the source material as you are.
Yeah.
So therefore it does not excite me as much as obviously it excites you. It worked for me.
Well, I'm happy it worked for you. I genuinely am. And for me, it's like every time I come back to this game, it's like, it's just it just feels un-Joker, but it works out, it works out later in the next games. And that's just one little detail. I'll be like, well, I can overlook that, it's whatever. So there's that. But, so I get a little burpy, it's this coffee.
It happens to you.
Natural light and Mountain Dew combo.
Well, you got like 5 different chemicals going. You're drinking Titan, aren't you?
I am. It's time to end this, Bats. So I feel like, we could talk this to death, but I don't want to do that because I want to have some stuff left over to go into the next 2 games and maybe the 4th game if we decide we want to do that. I think it's time to maybe give some final thoughts and maybe score this bad boy.
Okay.
So why don't you get us started?
Uh, Final thoughts. Look, this game has, in my opinion, it's aged very well. Uh, it's I put it right there as far as the aging, the type of gameplay that we're doing, the graphics, and we are playing. I have been playing the 2016 version that with the updated graphics. So we do have that, but I mean, the bones of that game are solid. They are absolutely solid, and I feel like they have aged fairly well over this last decade that this game has been around. A little over a decade now, to the point that this third time playing through, I think I finally got the formula right for how to play the game, and it was just extremely enjoyable. And so I never did really understand the best superhero game ever moniker that got hung on this game and later on Arkham City. They were just good games. I can see now why, with a little more perspective and a little more knowledge of the background of games that came before it. Yeah, this is a solid title and an excellent starting off point. Like I said before, an excellent tutorial if you're going to do a deep dive into the Arkham series. And as far as my rating, what do we do here? What do we do? Do we do fives or do we do tens?
It's at a 10. We're not like those guys. We're not those guys over at Bush League. All right. We're tens. Okay. We do a traditional ranking
I
system.
see.
We're not trying to reinvent the wheel like Jacob Bush. All right. I'm kidding. I love you, Jake.
Shots fired. Good
shout out to
God,
BLG.
man.
He's a great guy.
Yeah, absolutely. How do we feel about decimals? Do we accept decimal points?
We're trying to move away from that, but I'll accept it.
Okay, because I really want to do this. All right, so this is going to set the bar for further discussions in this series, right?
Yep.
So I'm going to set the bar here. I'm going to go 8.9 in honor of one of my favorite Batman movies, 89 Batman, Tim Burton. So I'm giving this one an 8.9, and I'm really curious to see where the next two especially come in relation to that 8.9.
Okay. I'll accept it. That is like a decimally. Like that's something I'd get. That's something every time I see IGN, and they used to do a 100-point system. Every time I'd see them do like an 8.2 or an 8.7, I'm like, just freaking round up. Just give it a 9.
Okay. All right. Officially, GameClub, it's a 9.
Okay. Thank you.
But I'm calling it an 8.9 in honor of Batman.
Okay. I'm going to call it 8.4 in honor of Wonder Woman 1984. No, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. I'm joking. It's not that bad, ladies and gentlemen. Also, you need to freaking change your tune
because I haven't watched that episode. I haven't seen the movie yet. I'm reserving judgment.
Okay. You need to watch it. That's all I'm saying.
Okay. I will.
Please. And go into it with an open mind and watch some old 80s or 70s and 80s Wonder Woman footage.
It's funny you mentioned that because I did when it was on DC Universe.
It's bad, huh?
I went, oh my God. I loved that show when I was a kid, but it has not aged well.
It's real bad, but there is a fondness and a love for that, and that's all I'm going to say. That's for a different discussion. So
yeah, it's a totally different DC property.
But text me once you watch it.
Okay. All right.
I'm matching your score. I'm giving it a 9 out of 10.
Okay.
There's enough there. I go into games nowadays. I play so many and I'm doing it so often. I give every game a 10 in my head automatically. And then once things start piling up, I'm like, okay, does this take away from this? How much does this thing that I don't like take away from it? Is it a bunch of minimal things that kind of add up to make it 1 point? For this game, it is that for me. I feel like it does suffer from some crowding. There are little things about it, just subjective things that I don't like. I don't like the way the Joker looks at the end. It feels inauthentic. And I don't like when games make side objectives too monotonous, like the Riddler trophies. And like you said, if you want to go back to it and go through it, that's great. And that is a good way to do it. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go on to Arkham City and do that, and play a new thing and continue the story. But back in the day, that would have been a nice thing while you were waiting was to get all of them.
You had 2 years to platinum it.
Yeah. You had plenty of time to do that.
Yeah.
So I can't take away from too much for that. It's just a personal preference. But, had I been working for a professional outlet and reviewed this game the day that when it came out, I would have the same criticisms as I have right now, and I would have given it a 9. So that's what I'm going to give it here, a 9 out of 10, which is still, I mean, you might as well give it a 10 in some ways. I mean, it's literally like such nitpicky things that take away from it. And it's just an opinion at the end of the day. So
I think the only reason why we don't give it a 10 now is because we have scope.
Literally. Yeah. And I mean, we're jaded and we are jaded because we have, and I'm really jaded because I have Arkham Knight and you don't.
Well, I have it. I just haven't played it yet.
You haven't played it. And there's things. Well, just, you know what, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to pull the podcast thing. If you want to hear us talk more about it, you're going to have to tune into the next episode of Game Club where we feature an Arkham series.
We do have the title or the name, sorry, of the scotch that I've been sipping this entire
which
deal.
Is
Tomatin.
Oh.
Tomatin Highland
Way
single
off.
Malt Scotch whiskey. Yeah.
It's
well, it started with the T.
T.
It started with the T.
Slippy, Slimmy, Swimey, Samsonite. I was way off.
Way off.
Yeah.
So there you go, folks. You listened all the way through and you got rewarded with a.
You did.
With a
you did. And look,
there.
we were able to tie it up. It's almost like we do this a lot, Ethan. You know,
you might think.
You might think we might do this a little bit. So there you have it. Yeah, poquito, un poquito. There you have it, ladies and gents. A 9 out of 10, the official score from Game Club from Wannabe Critic Productions. We're super excited to get this project going. There is a new Arkham game. There is a Arkham game coming out this year, and there is a new Rocksteady Suicide game coming out this year. I might have to dip my toes into that a little bit and offer little tidbits with Ethan, you know, the old maestro himself on this podcast, potentially. Maybe we'll see. I don't know. But no, you can look forward to me and Ethan's next discussion on Game Club. It will definitely be Arkham City, where we go down this rabbit hole even more. Arkham Knight will follow. And I'm gonna get you to buy Arkham Origins and play it because
it's in my queue.
Okay.
I just haven't hit the cart yet.
It's a good
but
game.
It'll happen. Yeah.
It's a good game. And honestly, we need to talk about it. Like, really, we do, because
well, this discussion went way better than I thought. So yeah, I'm on board.
Okay, good. Well, there you go. Maestro's willing to pull the trigger. That's gonna wrap it up for us here. Thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure you go down in the description. We do a lot of stuff. I mean, it is getting to the point where it is literally besides my wife, it is like the highlight of my life, where I literally just super enjoy making stuff. And the more stuff you make, the more stuff you see that you can improve, and like just volume increases, and then you just don't stop. And it's great. And it's a lot of fun. And I get to do it with basically one of my mentors here. You know, he's so graciously agreed to come on the show to do it and let me take the reins. But obviously, you know, we let him have his say too. He, you know, you can. Well, we're not gonna kill you off. We're not gonna Obi-Wan, Yoda, and Luke you. All right, we're gonna keep you around.
Thank you. I appreciate
you know,
that.
this is the expanded universe. You know, so things are better here.
Yeah.
Hey, did you catch what I just said? I just said I said this is the expanded universe and things are better here.
Oh, that totally blew right by me.
I said it.
Welcome to my world.
I said it.
Gabe. I appreciate it. I appreciate it.
But I still do have a very strong fondness. We're not going to get into it. You're going to have to tune into it. You're going to have to get into a different episode.
You do you, man. You do you.
Thank you. I'm at peace. I'm one with the force. So look at us
go.
Thank you so much for listening, ladies and gentlemen. We will see you next time. Keep your eyes open. Keep your ears open too, because we got a lot of cool stuff happening on Game Club this year, and I'm super excited to get it kicked off with this. So thank you for listening, and thank you for preparing yourselves for a plethora of hot takes and potentially unpopular opinions. We will see you next time. Say goodbye, Ethan.
Goodbye, Ethan.
Whatever possessed you to check out the podcast or the YouTube channel today, I just want to say thank you so much for doing so. If this is your first time here, I would appreciate it, you know, if you would consider subscribing. As you can tell, it's not just me here anymore. I mean, I do stuff by myself, but the podcast is going to reside here from now on, you know, in video form. So if you want to see more content, if you want to be notified, you know, every time we post something, whether it be a clip, a podcast, a review, an interview, whatever it may be, if it's gaming stuff, make sure you click that bell and hit the subscribe button, and we will see you next time. Thanks for sticking around, and thank you for preparing yourselves for a plethora of hot takes and potentially unpopular opinions. I'm Gabriel Fast. I will always be the Wannabe Critic.